Yeah, I'm Stefan. I live in Ned with Kari. He's sitting there. We've been there since 2023, so I know most of your faces now, but not all of you. So before we came here, we regularly went to Sweden, on Pop Swedish, where we ran sound recording trips for people. So my interest in sound recording goes back to when I was a teenager, and I made makeshift sound recordings of birds and other wildlife. And I kind of let that go for a few years until about 10 years ago when I started doing it again. When Kari and I had a place in Sweden we used to go to, and it was so full of amazing sounds that I thought I really want to start recording again. And then it developed from there. I had some friends who were into sound recording, and they told their friends, and they said, can you organise trips? And so we organised trips, so we did a couple of trips every year for about 5 years. So this presentation I'm doing tonight is something about that, but it's more general as well. It's about sound recording, listening to nature, different techniques, the benefits of it. Anyway, I'll start now, okay? Bear with me because I'm going to record this. I've done this before, so there's a few different buttons and ones I'm used to. Okay, so Listen to Nature, that was, we had a website and that was the name of our trips. Does anyone, oh, by the way, feel free to ask any questions. Does anyone know what that is?
Yes,
it is, but it might be one here. Yeah, that's a hoopers one. So you actually get those here in the winter, and they breed in Sweden. So it should be recording. Okay. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is just run a little video which one of the participants on our trip made for us, which is a bit of background to what we were doing. It's a bit of an advert, but we cut out bits of it which are too obviously advertising, if you like. But it's just nice because it captures some sounds and sort of people that came on our trip and why they came. Okay, so I'm going to play that.
My name's Greg Green, and I came from Kent in England. I'm really into nature and the sounds of nature, but where I'm from in England it's very busy, there's a lot of human noise, so I really wanted to come to somewhere where you can get away from all the hustle and bustle of a human life and just escape for a little bit.
My name is Jonas, and I'm from Denmark. I heard about it from a guy I used to work with, called Dan Hendricks. He went on this trip and he recommended it. Yeah, and it's something I really wanted to do. I wanted to be recording more nature sounds, especially now since I moved to Sweden. And this was just top of the list to try, get out more, learn a bit more about it. Yeah.
My name is Robert Berry. I live in Herefordshire in the UK on the border with Wales. I heard about it through other contacts in the Wildlife Sound Recording Society in the UK. And what was attractive about it, is that what you asked me? The quiet. I think that was probably one of the big attractions. And the other was what other people had to say about it and how special it was and how you had access to things that you might not otherwise have access to. And I must say all of those things are true.
My name is Ada. I am from Poland. Actually, I live in Berlin. I heard about this trip from my husband. Of course, we both lovers of birds and nature. We both artists, and I think after 3 years of a little bit unknown situation with Corona, we both need really good shake and go back to nature.
My name is Alex Leonard. and I am Irish, but living in Berlin for the past 5 years. I'm not entirely sure where I heard about it, but I checked out the Listen to Nature website and immediately, was quite fascinated by both the pictures and sounds and the general feeling of that this wasn't just about coming somewhere and getting sounds that you could collect. It was more about an overall experience and learning to connect with the place that you're around. So that was something that was quite important for me, and one of the things that I really wanted to get from this experience was a better understanding of wildlife, a better recognition of the sounds that I often try to capture.
I mean, some of the sights and sounds that we've experienced have been, something else. Seeing a herd of 4 elk following each other through the woodland and just stopping and looking at us, that was really special. But just, capturing so many incredible sounds, so many that I wanted to capture, the divers, the capercaillie and the grouse. It's a special place, definitely.
I definitely think it's the capercaillie, like the whole experience of going out to the lecking spot with Stefan. There's something very ritual about that space in the middle of the forest with the lighting and everything. So I think it's got to be that. And then coming back and listening the morning after to the pretty impressive sounds. That's got to be the highlight. There's something about connecting with people with different backgrounds and different kind of points of view of why they're here. That gives you a different perspective on things, because then you bring in your kind of like angle to things, and then you talk about it together. You kind of like get inspired from each other, and we all want to listen. We all want to hear. We all want to record it, but for different reasons.
To some extent, it's the surprises. It's going out for a walk and suddenly looking up and seeing 2 white-tailed eagles, and we have a few of those in the UK, but they're not right out in the back garden. And to watch them dancing in the sky this was today, was just stunning. So things like that, those sorts of surprises, and I think every day has presented those. And also from a recording point of view, it's been everything I expected in terms of the very rare quiet that is available here, and that's quite amazing.
I think the group was absolutely amazing. I love moments in canoes. I love moments with Stefan in the forest when we set up the equipment on the trees, and excitement from that was just absolutely enormous. I love Kerry moment with her in the kitchen when I could pick what she cooking for us, and definitely very, very special meals. And I think I found, even in all this craziness, a few moments to draw, to paint, to listen to birds. And I think altogether was well constructed, and I have really a moment for myself, for people, very, very excited, and I think I definitely going to try to do this more often.
One was a morning walk with borrowing Stefan's parabolic microphone dish and standing under a tree looking at a family of starlings and listening to them sing. And of course, starlings are a common bird, but to be up this close to them in this quiet, beautiful place was an absolutely wonderful experience, and they mimic, and so I'm quite certain that they were making the sound of a horse neighing. So that was quite a special thing. and there's just this constant array of nature passing by, and that's another special thing really, that it's so peaceful here and everything just feels in its right place, you know. So yeah, big thanks to Stefan and Carrie and John at Eden's Garden. I will remember this for forever really.
Okay, I've heard you like a quiz. Seems to be a theme. So there's a quiz. So there are some short gaps between sounds. Okay, so here we go. Oh, yeah, these sounds can all be heard in Scotland, okay, but not necessarily here in the Highlands. Some animals in there. And yeah, answers at the end. Sorry about the price. Oh, sometimes with more than one. Yeah, I think that's it. So some of those are things you can hear around here, and some of them. There are some pretty tricky ones in there that are very difficult to hear. So the recordings have been made in Sweden, but they're relevant to Scotland. So why listen and record? Well, it's been shown that listening to nature is good for your health. It's been proven good for your well-being, very calming. And the uses of sound recording in ecology are pretty well known. Now, you can basically take little snapshots of sounds over time, and it will reflect the state of nature at each time, and so you can actually compare that over decades. And there have been studies certainly done in America, Yellowstone National Park, places like this, which have shown nature returning, for example, when they reintroduce wolves. It's a very powerful conservation monitoring tool. So for just surveying purposes, for remote places, it's a great way to find out what's there, and it's much more cost effective than boots on the ground, because you can leave gear out recording for long periods. And some of the people that came on our trips were actually doing it for getting sound recordings for commercial reasons. So they were maybe getting sound for film and games, computer games. There was even a guy who came one year specifically just to record black-throated diver, because he needed that for his sound generating software engine, which he was selling to airlines as an alternative to listening to music. And yeah, he was missing black-throated diver, so he came for a week and he was very happy because he got it. And then quite a few people who came on trips were just doing it as a hobby. And as I was saying there, it's quite hard to be stressed when you're listening to wild sounds. So here was an example. This is a location. This is the location we ran our trips in. It's called the Black River in central Sweden. And one of the things we did was to take people out in canoes along the Black River at dusk or dawn. And there were beavers on the river, animals came down to feed by the side of the river, and of course there were birds flying over. So it's quite an experience, and this is just a 3-minute recording from that. Yeah, some of those sounds you can hear. Yeah. But one of the challenges you've got here is the wind. So that is a bit of an enemy of sound recording and listening. So a calm day is the day to go out and listen here. So COVID turned up, and we were actually living in England, in a really busy part of England down in Essex, and suddenly there was complete silence. So the birds, which you couldn't normally hear, were really noticeable on your little walks that you were allowed. So where we were, there were nightingales, and often you couldn't really hear them because of the din of planes. It was right in the flight path of Stansted Airport. It's a train line, busy trunk roads, but this was an amazing opportunity actually for people to listen. So I'm just going to play you a little soundtrack, which kind of is a snapshot of COVID really, because it's got the sound of essential services, which is a goods train, but it's just the goods train and the nightingale. So, resources available to anyone. So, there's an app that you can put on your phone called Merlin, and it will, if you put it up to listen to a bird, it can help you ID it. It doesn't always work. No, it probably doesn't like we know. No. So that's a free app. And you can listen to sample recordings of mainly birds on a website called Canto, which is a free thing, free resource. And then we've got British Library Wildlife Sound Archive. And there's actually a sound recording society called the Wildlife Sound Recording Society who we took on one of our trips to Sweden. So that's an international society, and they have annual field trips in the UK and a few abroad. So there are quite a few resources. So equipment. You can use your mobile phone. It's not going to be very sensitive. The thing about wildlife sound is it's pretty quiet compared to other sounds, compared to human generated sounds. So you generally need fairly good recording. Camera traps, they're useful because if you have a camera trap, you can actually identify the sound that you're hearing, which sometimes remains a mystery after you've recorded it. So they have a use there. Portable sound recorders, these are really good and they're cheap and they're just the size of a mobile phone. Maybe a couple of £100 will get you a really decent one, and then you can either use it as built-in microphone, or you can get external microphones for it. So that's what by far the majority of all these recordings were made with. So it's quite good quality. And then you've got your professional gear and specialist microphones like this one here, which some of these recordings have been made with. This is where it gets a bit expensive and a bit specialist, and yeah, not for everyone. And then there are little acoustic monitoring devices, which are basically sound recorders which you can leave out in the field, and they have very, very long life batteries, and they just take samples of recordings, and you can program them to sample like once a day or several times a day, and these are really the ones that are very, very useful for acoustic ecology, so monitoring the environment, monitoring habitats, seeing how they're changing. So recording techniques, so the recordings that you've seen and the ones that you're going to see more of here, or hear more of, some of them are where what I call active recording, where you're standing with the equipment out in the field, operating it. Well, the advantages of that are you can actually react to things around you and point the microphone in the right direction, respond to things, and then if you're using microphones like that big dish, you can actually isolate things and amplify them. So, for example, if there's a bird flying around, it's much easier to pick it up if you're actually following it with one of these dishes. Obviously, you're not going to lose your equipment because you're not leaving it out in the field if you've got it with you, and then you can adjust sound levels and things like that. The problems with this sort of recording technique is that you might disturb the wildlife because you're having to get close to it. So, is it going to be a natural recording? Also, you might actually miss something which calls when you're not there. Sensitive microphones like this handheld dish I've got, they're very, very sensitive. So even if you just move your finger, it'll pick up that sound. And it'll pick up the sound of you breathing or farting, no problem. Got quite a lot of that on recordings. So this is an example. This is Kari using one of these parabolic reflectors in a forest clearing in Sweden to focus on distant sounds. So this is actually, this is up in the sky. You've got a skylark and a woodlark both singing at the same time. So moving the dish from one side to the other, focus on each one. So that's the skylark. And this is the woodlark. And this one's a really difficult moving target, a snipe. So I don't know if any of you have seen snipe displaying. They're quite high up in the air, they're quite small birds, so it's difficult to see where they are exactly. But one of these dishes, if you can line it up with one of these, then you actually get a sound which is usually fairly faint, but it can amplify it. So this is what this is. It's actually those two feathers that's sticking out separately to the rest of the tail. Those are what create the sound. When it dives at 45 degrees, the feathers vibrate. So leaving equipment out in the field recording, which is a favourite technique of mine and a lot of the people who came on our trips. It means that you can record more natural sounds because the equipment isn't actually disturbing the subject, especially if you camouflage it. So it's tricky sometimes finding the best place, so you can leave your equipment out all night and you've got completely the wrong place. So it takes a few field skills, so you might need to do a few trips to check what the best spot is to put your stuff. But basically, once you've found that spot, you just start your equipment recording, and then you come back at the end of the day or the end of the night and pick it up and listen back. It's a bit like camera trapping. You want to see what you've got later. So that's an example of a fairly well camouflaged microphone. That one is used to record capicaillie. So, as I said, camera traps can actually help you find the right spot. So I placed a camera trap at a place that I thought would be a good place for capicaillie, which is a massive turkey-sized grouse, which lives in Scotland, mainly down in the Cairngorms, but it's very much under threat from maybe disturbance. They're declining in Scotland, but in Sweden, quite a few of them still. So, yeah, placing a camera trap means that because these are very sensitive birds as well, it means that you can go there at a time of the day when they're definitely not there, put the camera trap there, and then you know that's a good spot, so then you can record there. So this proved to be quite a good spot. Well, that's a very unusual and dramatic sound. It's actually very quiet. you have to be within about 100 meters to hear it. And to record it, you have to be very close. If you're more than 10 meters away, it's not usually going to be a very good recording. And these males that do this display, each one has its little staging area, and they're spread out in a forest clearing, their little stages, and they posture to each other to suss each other out to see who's the strongest. And one of them mates with all the females and drives the others away. So that was a successful camera placing, but it also caught a few other things, which is always nice. So, oops, I didn't miss one there. Oh, no, that's my slides. Right, I'll come back to that. Oh no, this is the right one, sorry. No, here's another example of something I picked up, and I had no idea what the sound was, and I wouldn't have had any idea what the sound was unless I'd had the camera track there, so it's quite quiet, so hold your breath for a minute. So that's the sound that a bull elk makes, which is very quiet compared to red deer.
That's why I've got a TTS at the moment.
And this is the end result from the Capercaillie. So I was very close to it, and I think you can just about hear it walking on the ground as well. If I can just find that. You could just hear the other distant popping noises of the other males. So this is an interesting subject. It's a nightjar. So very hard to see and quite hard to record because they basically are quite mobile. But sometimes you just get lucky. And I had the mic in the right place for this one. Took a few goes. That's the sound, it's wings clapping together. So as well as the sounds of specific species which you're targeting, you know, a lot of the people that came on our trips wanted to record soundscapes, so a wider range of sounds from a habitat, so an ambience. This is a fairly unusual example. It's a lake in Sweden, which was this was in April, and it was thawing and then refreezing. So this is the sound of it refreezing, and a hooper swan trying to actually find some water on the lake to land, but it was all freezing over. So. Yeah, sound of ice falling is pretty powerful. At the other end of the scale, a mini soundscape around some flowers. It's in a meadow in Sweden. Yeah, looking forward to hearing that again.
I'm doing the water.
Move on. That's good. So, this is a wood ant's nest. That's Corey there, for scale. They get quite big over there. They can actually place a special kind of microphone called a contact microphone into a wood ant's nest or into the soil or anything like that. And yeah, you can get some interesting results. So this is a wood ant's nest. It could have been me frying bacon, but yeah, So as I mentioned there, acoustic ecology, which is a new application for sound recording, is a great tool for assessing the conditions of habitats, where you can take regular recordings and measure what's happening to the soundscape. You can also survey species distributions, as I mentioned, leaving them in remote areas over long time scales. And although it's great to listen back to recordings, if you can imagine, if you've got months and months of recordings of these little acoustic monitors, you're going to be probably listening to a lot of nothing as well. So luckily, AI machine learning software has been developed which can actually automatically recognise the signatures of particular species. When you look at a digital recording, when you look back at it, it's basically peaks and troughs like this. And each species will have its own signature. So this is the recording I played you earlier with a skylark and a woodlark. So you can see the difference there between a woodlark and a skylark. Quite a different signature. So you can actually learn, the software can learn to identify these. So it's a very, very powerful tool when it comes in. And there are quite a few projects involving acoustic ecology monitoring. It's an example of one here where they're monitoring throughout Norway. They're monitoring resident species, they're monitoring migration. These can be very big scale projects which you wouldn't have the manpower to do. So very powerful. Okay, so we've come back to the quiz. So I'm going to play them again and tell me what you think.
Sedge.
Any ideas?
Sedge.
So there's two birds in there. So there's the sedge warbler and the noisy one.
Sounds like a wild boar.
It's a water rail. It's a water bird that lives in reefs.
Steam whistle. Oh, yes.
What did you call it?
Somebody described it as like a steam
It's a
whistle.
steam. Right. Yeah. Okay. Technical hitch, hold on. Just find my way back to that. Right. Okay. So the next one coming up. This is more local to us.
Common seal.
Beaver.
No, it's more local to us.
Oh,
isn't it?
sorry.
Seal's a seal.
So that's a seal,
Oh.
common seal. Yeah. This is also quite a local bird, if you're lucky enough to hear it, because they live in quite inaccessible areas sometimes, and it's not always best conditions to hear them. So that's anyone know? Black-throated diver.
Oh, yeah.
So two things going on there, which could potentially both be around here.
Corn crake.
Yeah, corn crake, the rasping, repetitive one, and the continual sort of one like a grasshopper. That's actually
Grasshopper warbler.
that's a grasshopper warbler. So they often live in the same habitat. Well,
Yeah.
you know, potentially they live in the same habitat, so you could get both of those here potentially. Right. Okay. Be really surprised if anyone knows that one.
Is that a relatively new sound for Scotland? It's a beaver.
Yeah, it's a beaver.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is a
yeah.
beaver.
They're very quiet. You have to get very close. We struck lucky. We found a little beaver in a little stream and crept up on it. Right. Sorry, my mouse keeps disappearing for some reason. Oops. No. Go back. I can't go back, can I? Because I'm recording. I'll just press that and stop recording. And I can go back. Right. Okay. Done that one. Done that one. Done that one. Okay, next one.
Oh,
It's a long-eared owl.
Okay. I have a point
Right.
for you.
No prizes. That's a sound you can hear here.
Raven.
Raven.
So is this.
Main one's good.
So again, you're very lucky if you hear it. Did anyone know what that was? That's an otter.
Hoopers. Black grouse, is it?
Yeah.
Grouse.
Black grouse. There's a couple of things going on here.
A bittern.
Yeah, and the crane.
Okay.
That was a roe deer. That was an easy one. Curly?
Amphibian.
No.
Oh, other.
No ideas? I'll play that. I'll try and play that last one again. I've heard it in Ned.
Is that wood warble? The high pitch, but
Oh, no, I'm talking about the croaking noise and the
Oh.
squeak. So I've heard it in Ned. No, it's there are a lot of them around here in the winter, and they take off in front of your car on the roads a lot.
Woodcock.
Yeah, and that's what they sound like in the summer when they're doing their
Oh, roadie.
territorial display flight.
Yeah.
Again, they're not very loud, but you need a quiet evening. But if you walk around wooded parts here, well, I know they're in Ned because I heard it. Yeah. So, any questions?
the small monitor you have tied to the tree there, that's a
That's-
long-term one, is it?
Yeah. That one.
Yes. How long
Yeah.
the battery in that?
How
The battery, how long would it last?
how long? It depends how many have you programmed it to record.
Ah,
But,
right.
They can last months and months.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's just like doing a sample.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that one was out for about 6 months.
But not constant.
No. I set it to because I was monitoring a Kappa K relay,
Ah,
and I set it to record particular time of day, So for about a 3-month period. Yeah.
get a few weeks out of it constant, would you?
I think that would be then limited on the SD card size. Yeah.
What was that sound on the Black River that sounded like the helicopters at the beginning of Apocalypse Now?
It was helicopters.
Oh, I think that was a grasshopper whooper again.
Oh my goodness, it was amazingly loud.
Was
That's, you did 3 minutes of the Black River, I think,
Yeah.
but that was, but the sounds were
Oh.
all brought together. But that wasn't 3 minutes of actual recording, was it? Oh, it
It was
was.
continuous recording.
Oh, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Dawn chorus.
No, that was a continuous recording. This one. Yeah.
Yes, good.
With that one, I think I was using this dish.
That's bitten.
That's a bittern, yeah. So with this one, I think I was using this in a canoe, so I was scanning around, so picking up different sounds. Yeah.
That's why some of them don't disappear.
Yeah.
To stay live. Yeah.
that sound. That's the wing beats of this. Yeah, that's part of their display. They rock from side to side, and so that's a lapwing. Kiwi. Yeah. So they when they do this display flight, they flip from side to side, thrashing their wings like that. It's part of the effect, and that's the snipe. So that's it, folks. I think that's sort of on time. So yeah, any questions at all?
Just an observation, we were once up on a very remote bog opposite Ben Loyal, and there was something, a wader, calling from an area that we couldn't get into because it was too boggy and a lock. It was probably wood sandpiper, but I don't know it well enough, and they're fairly so rare up here.
Well, then you'd have to leave something out.
Yeah, that would have been
try and
really
pick it up.
useful.
That's a typical example of like if you could spend hours searching for that. Or you could just leave some equipment out and then you'd find out whether it was there. Or leave equipment out in likely spots, where you think they might be.
Is the equipment sort of applied to a particular locality, or does the same equipment, would it work anywhere in the world?
No, it would work anywhere. So, the equipment that I normally leave out is just in a tiny camouflage bag, and it has a couple of microphones which you can just attach to the
But
tree.
would it identify sort of everything?
Oh right, would it record everything, or would it identify?
Would it identify it? Well, you've got a whole load of sounds.
Yeah, no, that's something that you'd either do yourself listening back, you'd have to identify, or if you've got some of this fancy software which can identify it for you, then it can listen to hours of recordings and tell you what's there.
I was using Merlin while you were playing some of these.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we did Skylark and the Woodlark, got Skylark, but it didn't. I've got it set just for the UK. UK, but it didn't get the Woodlark.
No. Maybe it's a Scotland specific one you got there or something.
It's UK, so I thought, yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Was that recorded in the UK?
No, that was recorded in Sweden.
So they do have different dialects.
Probably, maybe that's it. Yeah, I mean birds
a lot of
do.
things it didn't pick out.
Yeah, birds do have different sort of dialects. Like there's a bird called a great tit, which is here, and it's completely different to the ones I've heard in England. It's got a completely different sound. So they learn different language depending on their locality, and they must inherit that from their parents. A bit like us, really.
Because they did a PTO thing many years ago, and it was great. It was one of the things. You just played it. I thought that's not what I would rate it sound like.
No.
And it was from south of the wall. So he's recorded it from down south, and it didn't sound like I wouldn't believe me.
Are you doing any systematic recording up here?
I haven't really had time to do it, but I might do some. The recording of the common seal was down at Loch Ness, I have recorded like red deer here and stuff. But I mean it's challenging up here to record because wind is the enemy of sound recording. So you have to pick a calm day, and then you have to be quite close to the subject as well. So it really lends itself to habitats like woodland, where you can get close to things, where the wildlife is a bit more distant here, and it'll see you coming. It's probably better to use the sort of equipment which you can leave in place. But then of course you risk it getting rain and wind on. And so it's quite challenging up here, but I'm going to give it a go sometime.
Might you consider taking a field meeting out in about May down in the Newark Woodlands, for instance, to see what we could record?
Yeah.
Sorry, you couldn't say no to that.
Yeah. You'd have to check because we're so busy with our
Yeah, yeah.
little shepherd's huts. But yeah, and of course it's got to be a nice day, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You go out in the wind and the rain, and nothing will be calling.
We're all right for wind now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's quite bad.
Whatever.
And one technique that I haven't mentioned that you use, which is a bit controversial, which you sometimes use to get recordings, is callback. So if you make the call of a bird or an animal, obviously hunters use it, and it comes to you. In Sweden, if you go to the forest, there's a bird which all small birds respond to. It's called a pygmy owl. So if you make the simple sound of a pygmy owl, which is the very simple whistle, you quickly find out what birds there are in that wood because they all come to you. So tried it a couple of times. I mean, it's not great because it distracts them from their everyday lives. But if you want to,
are they coming to mob it?
yeah. And then the pygmy owl comes as well if there's one to mob. And I've had it actually fly at my head, thinking it's another pygmy owl. Completely unafraid. So yeah.
Do you have a role to play with your equipment to show what things are actually around rather than recording? Say recording, which is a good idea. Is there a danger that you're actually interfering? Perhaps
You mean if you play it back or if you're recording?
Yeah.
Well, recording can be done very discreetly. So with these camouflaged, recording devices, and so it's a little bit like photography, where you can either do it in a way which disturbs wildlife, or you can do it in a way which doesn't. So that's up to you and how you behave. The recordings that, for example, you made a capercaillie there. I know that there was no disturbance caused because the capercaillie is still there. They thrive there. So if you do it carefully, if you do sound recording carefully, there's a minimal risk of disturbance for sure. Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Is there, like, photography for certain species, you must be licensed? Is there any requirement like that for certain?
I think it's probably covered by just general disturbance.
General disturbance.
So obviously, so if we go to the example of the capercaillie, well, they're so threatened in the UK and Scotland that you would be basically breaking the law if you even went to their lakeside, unless you have a special license. So you have to have a license for these very, very threatened birds. So that's why you can't record them in the UK easily, but you can in other places where there are plenty of them.
Do you know what capercaillie is Gaelic word? Is there a Swedish word for capercaillie?
Yeah, there is. So I think there's capercaillie in Gaelic to mean the horse of the woods, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And in Swedish it's called cheddar, which has no meaning at all. It's just a word.
How do you spell that?
It's T-J-A with an umlaut over it, D-E-R. Yeah.
Stefan, have you ever caught that scream by a rodeo? It's really just sounds like a radio screaming.
The one that was on here.
Well, it's more like a scream than the one you had.
What you've heard a roe deer screaming?
Yes, it was rather captivating, I think.
Okay.
It sounded so much like a scream that I don't think it was quite Stu Percival subsequently said, yes, that's...
A roe deer? Oh, really? Okay. Well, the roe deer recording I made there was a roebuck.
Oh, so this is the
So maybe it was a doe. Yeah.
It's very dressed like a Hitchcock movie.
Really? Well, there's a bird around here which also makes a screaming noise. Could have been a barn owl. Yeah. They sound like a blood-curdling scream. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Stefan.
You're welcome.
The micro recording you did of the meadow just made me think if you did a similar thing in some of the big sort of wheat fields or big industrial sort of farm fields down in, well, anywhere in the world, but it's so different when you're in the countryside, you know. It's incredible.
I mean, one of the nice things about making these recordings is that you can, it transports you back. You know? So I don't listen to them very often, but sometimes when I do, it's just like, it takes you there.
Yes.
More, you know, in a way which photographs can't. You know, especially if you switch the lights off.
So all of you sort of, even if you're not recording, just go out and sit and just soak in all the sound about you. And particularly, I notice this time of year it's quite quiet, but the sound will be coming back as the birds and everything comes in, and then that's the spring on its way. Yeah.
Yeah, this still weather we've been having is really, you notice that sounds that you maybe wouldn't normally hear because of a bit of wind. Well, it's really obvious, yeah.
So thank you so much, and please give them a hand up.